Hello. There. Good evening. My name is Sebastian, and I'm a member of the Young Leaders World Affairs Council. And this is Mark. Thank you for coming here in this exciting event, Empowering Women in Tech. At the Young Leaders World Affairs Council, we focus on international topics, and one of them was technology, so we thought that this would be an awesome event, and clearly from the turnaround, it is very good, so thank you for being here. We're also doing hashtag Women in Tech if you want to follow us or collaborate with us or share about the event. And I'm going to pass you over to Mark.
So by a show of hands, how many World Affairs Council members do we have? All right, so I think we have some registration going along somewhere in the back. So if you didn't raise your hands, it's a great organization. We want to thank Atlanta Tech Village for letting us host this event here. For their help, we were able to make a lot of this happen. And also we want to thank Coca-Cola and UPS for their sponsorships, as along with Women in Technology WIT and General Assembly. And we have Ashley Craver here that would like to say a couple words from the General Assembly.
Thank you, Mark. Hi, my name is Ashley, and I work at General Assembly as one of the program directors of our immersive programs. And before I get into, I have to really talk close at this. Before I get into General Assembly, I wanted to just speak a few words about the person in the room that actually got me into the tech industry, and that's LYNN LAUBE, who's on our panel. So I had the pleasure of working at Cardlytics for 6 years and learning all the ins and outs of the startup world and data analysis and operations. So I have a lot to thank to her to being here right now. So General Assembly. Oh, hey. Thank you, Lynn. General Assembly, so we do tech education and business and design as well. We have everything from 2-hour workshops, free workshops available to anybody in the public, as well as all the way up until immersive programs, 12 weeks, 9 to 5:30, like very in-depth boot camp type courses. So, and everything in between, part-time evening courses and weekend courses. You can check us out at ga.co. No M on the end of that, not .com. And yeah, you should check us out. So General Assembly, we're going to be in Ponce City Market starting in January. We're very excited about moving into the new space, and we have 19,000 square feet and 6 classrooms, and we would love to have you guys come out and check out some of our classes and workshops, and hope to see you there soon. Next, Erin from ATV is going to say some words.
Hi, everybody. Thank you for being here tonight. You're all at Atlanta Tech Village. So quick show of hands. Who is this your first time here at Atlanta Tech Village? Wow. Well, I want to give you guys a special welcome. Thank you for being here. The Atlanta Tech Village is essentially a home for technology entrepreneurs. So we rent office space and desks to entrepreneurs who are trying to create technology businesses. They're in the hopes they're one day going to be as successful as some of these women up here. So my job is to help connect our entrepreneurs to outside resources. So part of that is to help coordinate activities like this. We do so many great events. I encourage you guys to check out the events calendar on our website. And General Assembly actually hosts some of their events here as well before they get their space up and running. So they've got some fantastic workshops and courses that we are privileged to house here. So thank you guys for that. Anyway, so now I have the privilege of introducing our moderator for the evening. She's going to take it from here and give you guys a really great dialogue and discussion about empowering women in technology. So Jackie Chu, CEO of iFusion Marketing. She is CEO of iFusion Marketing, but she also has founded a startup called Beyond MVP, which is a digital media property that covers startups and the ecosystem in general in the South. So check it out. She is awesome. If you don't know her, you need to know her. So you've now met her, so make sure you talk to her at this event. She's amazing. She's a recovering marketer. She's an innovation junkie, and she is a trend spotter. And she's the perfect woman to host this event and moderate this panel. So I'm really excited that you guys are all here tonight. A quick shout out to WIT. The representative from WIT couldn't be here tonight, but they're fantastic. Oh, you're here, Sandy. Do you want to say something? Okay, well, WIT is also an amazing organization to encourage women to pursue careers in technology. So check them out. They're amazing. Thank you.
All right, a round of applause for all our sponsors tonight. All right, I'm going to set the timer. We are going to do this in 55 minutes for the panel, and then we're going to open it up for questions. However, you may tweet Women in Tech as a hashtag and me at Jackie Chu. If you want to get the spelling of my name, it's in the program. And I will try my best to peek at this and talk to them all at the same time. And but whatever we don't get to, we can always do question-wise during the Q&A. Also, if you have your phones and it's not on stun, please take a moment, put them on stun.
Stun.
Come on. No Trekkies here? Trekkies? Star Wars? None? No? Okay. Wrong crowd. There you go. There you go. And finally, before we start, I would like to have I would like to have 7 brave souls, you're out there, to come sit in front row. They don't bite, I promise. And if they do, I'll protect you.
We might.
Come on. Come on. All right. Thank you. Sales Loft, Lady Lofters in the house. They'll do anything for promotion. Okay. All right, so we're set. So there has been a tremendous interest in the media about women pursuing careers in the technology industry. It's become the vogue at this point. And the challenges therein that predate Sheryl Sandberg's TED Talk, as well as her book, Lean In. Who's read Lean In here? All right, okay, good number of you, all right. Today we have 3 distinguished panelists who are not only women in technology, but are each thriving in their individual careers. So it is my pleasure to introduce LYNN LAUBE to the far right. She's founder and president of Cardlytics, one of the hottest growth stage startups in the city. She reminded me that they were actually founded in 2008. I only just heard about them, though, in 2010, but they're really hot. They're red hot right now. The company's new media platform enables advertisers to use consumer purchase data to inform and measure all of their marketing. It holds a number of patents that enable this highly innovative business model, and under her leadership, Cardlytics recently raised $70 million in funding in its Series F round. $70 million. It's a lot of zeros. Woo! And what's even more exciting for those of us who've been following the startup community here in Atlanta for a long time is that this will prime them for an eventual IPO. Go LYNN. In the middle is Melissa Davis. She is CEO of Elevate Hire Solutions, one of the fastest growing technology recruiting and staffing firms based right here in the Village. I get to see Melissa every day. Elevate serves the technology staffing needs of startups. Technology staffing needs of startups and Fortune 500 companies alike. Melissa is an active member of the technology community and is part of Women in Technology, TAG, otherwise known as Technology Association of Georgia, and Dining for Women. Last but not least, to my immediate right is Jen Benet. She's a technology entrepreneur who began her entrepreneurial journey as a technology co-founder of eTour, one of the hottest startups in the city in the late 1990s. The company was acquired by SGs, which is now Ask.com, in 2001. She's currently, amongst many things, the Assistant Director of Education and Community Outreach at ATDC, one of the country's most established tech incubators, and one of the earliest tech incubators. She's also the local liaison for Startup Weekend. Finally, she is the tireless founder and chief chick at StartupChicks, a nonprofit encouraging female entrepreneurship through education and community. A round of applause for all 3 panelists, please. All right, so we're gonna get this ball rolling and ask, this is for everyone, how would each of you define a technology career? Let's start with Melissa.
For me, I think anybody who's sort of building, producing, supporting, and supplying anything in technology.
Anything to add? I think Lynn
So-
might have something to
So
add.
my perspective is a little different because I actually started out as a coder. So I have a Bachelor of Science in Mathematics and Computer Science. And my career path was from coder to manager, to a team leader, to manager, architect for a little bit, over to eventually becoming Chief Technology Officer at eToro. And my original definition of a technology career was actually that, like, you had to code to be a technologist. And so I would go to all these events and I'd be like, but you sell, and you market, and you do biz dev. I'm like, you're not really in technology. That's where I was. Today I have this very broad view of the world, because even as a salesperson or even as a marketer, you have to understand kind of the guts of what's going on from a technology perspective. So I have a much broader vision than when I was a programmer, and then it's really grown. So I mean, like, if you touch technology, if you have to understand technology, better yet, if you have to explain technology to somebody who's not that technical, you are a technologist.
So Lynn, you don't have a formal technology training, training. So how do you, and you are the founder of a technology startup, a very complicated technology startup.
Yep.
So how does that work?
Yeah, I like to tell stories when I sit on these panels because I think it makes it more entertaining. So I'll start a story when I was in college. And I took my first coding course, which I'm going to date myself, was COBOL. COBOL is a horrible language. Thank God if you've never had to take it. And it was one of those programs where you would write beautiful code and you'd forget a period somewhere and it wouldn't execute. And this was back when you had the green sheets and you had to print those out, and then you go through the green sheets and try to figure out what went wrong, and you were in the lab for hours. It was horrible. I hated technology. Hated it. Swore when I was in college there was no way I was ever going to go into a technology career. And then I got my first job. I was actually a banker, pretty analytical kind of skill set. And I discovered that you can use technology to actually make things better. And I look at this room, there's a lot of young people in this room, and you have a real advantage. When I was 23 and right out of school, I wasn't scared to try the new database program or to, back then it was the Lotus 123, right? I mean, I'm really dating myself, I know. But I was able to use technology to make things better. And that's what I define a technology career as. If you're using technology to change the way things are done or to make things better, you're in a technology career, without question. And that's what employers are looking for. They're looking for people who are going to come in and make things better and change the way things are done to make them better. And technology is the thing that can enable that. So even if you don't know how to write code, even if you don't build apps on the weekends, there's something that you're excited about that you can use technology to make better, and that puts you square in technology. And that's really been the course of my whole career, is I've used technology to make things better, to invent new things. Cardlytics really was, we invented a new thing, and we used technology to do that. And while I didn't write all the code, I certainly understood what it was we were trying to build and was able to translate that to the people who were writing the code.
So, there is a certain nomenclature that one has to have, a certain command of the terminology and the concepts. So for someone, who didn't have that in college, didn't have a formal training, what does one have to do? What did you do, Melissa? Because you're talking with IT directors, CIOs all day, every day as you're looking for technology talent for them.
Right.
What did you have to do?
For me, it was a tremendous amount of learning and studying, and by nature what I do is constantly talking to technologists. So every day I'm learning and growing. But throughout my career in staffing, I've done it for about 8 years now. When I first got started, it was tons of learning, tons of reading. I would go and study everything because there's so much to it in every facet. When I first started, I did all of IT, so I was learning about the hardware, the infrastructure, the databases, the programming languages. So it was just constantly learning.
Where did you go? Did you go online? Did you Google things?
Lots. I think there's far more out there now, but before I would Google. Wikipedia was like my savior. Tons of Googling, but again, talking to technologists all day, every day, and sort of retaining it and piecing it together and thinking about it, like, when I work on this job in this program, or why is it important, how does Lotus Notes connect to the database, and, you know, all of that. So, and it sort of came naturally to me, and that's why I've enjoyed my career in technology. I didn't study it in college. I didn't think it was an industry I would ever be part of, but it's just something I sort of...
So what's really interesting about the three of you, what I just heard, is that each of you really enjoyed learning. Mm-hmm. You enjoyed learning new things, and you were not going to limit yourself to what you knew, and you were adventurous with it. So this is for Jen. Since you're the converse of this, what did you have to do to broaden your perspective? Because you're a coder, you're an awesome CTO.
Yeah. So I think it goes back to the learning. Whether you're doing startups or you're doing technology, you're constantly learning, right? In a technology field, you're learning about a technology that you're implementing, or thinking about how to do it or how to architect it. As a startup CEO, you're constantly thinking about learning a industry, or learning a niche, or learning those practices that you're going to be able to sell into a business line to actually get your product used, right? So you have to embrace learning first and foremost, I think, and no matter what you do. For me, the leap from hacker to hustler, yes, is
Tweet that.
hacker to hustler.
Yeah, that's a good one.
I actually gave a talk on this to some students last summer, because I started out as a hacker. I was a coder, right? And as you grow up, as you go through the ranks, when you get to be CTO of a startup that goes from your employee number 0, I guess, founder, to having 160 employees and raising $42 million in venture capital and things like that, and you're on the board, you have to learn the business skills too. You have to be able to convince the board that another $2 million investment in the technology so that we're able to scale makes sense from a business perspective, not just the technology viewpoint. So that experience forced me to learn, cash flow statements and balance sheets and the financial aspects, and think about ROI on an investment, and think about those things that an investor or a board would be concerned about. And so that was my kind of MBA, was a learning experience of raising $42 million in venture capital and being accountable to them as a chief technology officer from the technology perspective. If the site was down at 9 o'clock in the morning, I was not only getting calls from my CEO, I was getting calls from board members and potentially going to lose my job if I could not turn it around, because we were losing $10,000 every 30 seconds, right? So
That's a horrible number.
sorry, it becomes very real. It becomes very real very quickly, and you have to know the business, and you have to understand the business if you're going to play at that role in the organization. And so in that transition, I learned enough about the business to know that my future roles are probably not necessarily hands-on. I'm not going to go back and code again, right? It just doesn't make sense. I'm probably not even going to be a chief technology officer again, right? But I will probably be a CEO again now that I have those skills. So the hardest part is actually the communication skills, right? Is learning that, because now you're not just talking to technologists, you're talking to investors and business people and people that run VC firms and whatnot, and being able to communicate to them what's really important versus the minutia that a chief technology officer deals with every day.
Thank you for that. So we're going to go into this next topic, which is a little dicier, a little more controversial. So, Aaron, can you roll the PowerPoint? I don't know if people can see it or not. So I basically grabbed two charts with graphs on them, and they're from the Catalyst, and they're a nonprofit here in the U.S., but they're global in scope. And so studies confirm the benefits of diversity in the technology sector. So, but yet women account for a quarter, so 25% to less than 25% of high-tech jobs in the U.S. And whilst their European counterparts fare a little bit better, our European counterparts fare a little bit better. Women account for between 21 to 33% of the high-tech jobs in Europe. And the second chart shows the different countries in Europe. So they're a little bit better, but these are all the different countries. You can't really see it. They're on the Catalyst site, so you can find them there. Women are still not proportionately represented. So Lynn, many studies cite negative stereotypes and biases associated with math and science. These are subjects that we have to master in school, amongst girls in middle schools particularly, as the leading cause for girls, the small number of girls pursuing STEM. So what's your personal experience with this, and what's your perspective?
Well, first of all, I could draw this same chart for almost any career, whether it's banking, whether it's science, whether it's medicine, whether it's executives, period, at any level. The number of times that I am the only woman in a room in my career is 95%. If not more. So this is not unique to technology. This is a huge problem, and I don't mean to sound like Sheryl Sandberg wannabe, but women quit way too early. And when I say quit, they either quit because they really quit, like they're gonna go have babies, or they quit because they just sort of go, I can't do that, or they quit because they never even start. And I think it happens in early age. I am the mother of a 15-year-old girl and a 12-year-old boy. My girl from a very early age said she hated math. She did not get that from me, I guarantee you. And by the way, I'm a huge, technology, I don't write code, but boy, I love math, right? And I think it's all about the hard fields that we've really got to encourage women to get into. My son, on the other hand, loves math. And, two kids, same upbringing, same exact background, oftentimes the same exact teacher. I was telling someone in the audience a story. My daughter and my son had the same 6th grade math teacher. My daughter could not stand him, absolutely hated him. It was when she really decided, I hate math. My son had him a couple years later, and he loved him. And I said, Keegan, what is it that you love about this math teacher? And he's like, Mom, he's so cool. When we know the answer to a question, we raise our hand, he throws a football. We get to catch it. And I thought, well, wow. No wonder my daughter hated math. Who here wants to catch a football when you're answering a question that is already tough? So the stereotypes are so embedded, and they start at a very, very early age. But if there's one thing I would say, it's, we need more women to start in these fields. It's not, women don't leave at a faster rate than men. There's just not enough starting. That's the problem.
So there was a study, and it was a story in NPR. I know I must sound like a media geek. Well, I sort of am. Yeah. Okay. Point taken. There was a story in NPR about they did a study, and they showed that the number. So before the 80s, the advent of PCs in homes and that revolution where PCs were, believe it or not, positioned as boys' toys. Mm-hmm. For boys and gadgets for boys, there was actually a more equal number of women in tech versus boys in school. NPR.org, do a search on it, you'll find it. I was astounded. So apparently these stereotypes that we perpetuate, the teacher, I'm sure, was not meaning to perpetuate a negative stereotype or a negative bias, but there are things that we do, that we individually do, even as women, that we're doing with our children, our niece, etc. Do y'all have anything to add? Because I know
She said niece, yeah.
Yes.
She's talking about me. She knows my niece. So I have an 8-year-old niece, and so my sister, her mother, is a single mom, and she hates math. So it's my job, quite frankly, to make sure that this young woman does not hate math. So we do things like Sudoku together and different things like that. But the big thing that we did this summer that was really fun and that we're still working on because it's not done yet is I decided that I would get games built for her. I said storyboard a game, and I taught her how to storyboard a game, a mobile game. You make up the story, and I will get it built, and we will put it in the store, and you will have your own game in the store. And of course, my 5-year-old nephew's like, I want a game, I want a game. I'm like, fine, both of you storyboard. We're storyboarding. So we're storyboarding games, and we're working through levels and what prizes you get at each level and how you get points and all these things, and they're drawing them out. And then I've got a company lined up to actually build the games out for them, so they'll each have their own
You're a
game
fantastic
in the
aunt.
store.
Yeah.
And that was just a way for me to make sure that she's staying engaged with, what a great thing for her to be able to go back to school next year and say, I've got a game in the store. Don't you want to download my game? Right? And we might charge a little bit for it. We've been toying with it. Well, because it could go towards their college fund, right? So we could raise money for their college fund by selling these games. And if it's $1.99, you might pay for it as a mom to fund a college for a
So you're making me feel like an underachiever now. I thought I was so cool as an aunt, giving them like science, like giving my Katie Rose science games and such. You're like way cooler. So Melissa and Lynn, what are y'all doing to encourage math, science, those kind of topics with your little ones?
Well, I think back when I was growing up, like all the games and stuff, it was all, really for boys. It was like car racing and fighting and sports and hockey and soccer and basketball. So I think a lot of the stereotypes started then. And that's when I was growing up, when the Nintendo and all that was really big. And I hated it. And all the boys loved it, but girls hated it. And I think it goes back to when you're young, families need to encourage that. And I think now society needs to bring, get the girl games, have a Barbie game. I don't know, like something like that. But I feel women in like STEM, it does start at a young age. It starts with families creating, in all of them, not just technology, but science, medicine, create experiments, create little groups, just to encourage women and kind of break down those biasisms and those stereotypes.
Anything to add, Lynn? That
In
could
many
help?
ways, I'm lucky. My kids know every little piece about building Cardlytics. They know all the near-death experiences. They know all the non-near-death experiences. They've been in the office a million times, and I think my daughter does take from it that you really can do anything. We've raised $170 million over the life of Cardlytics, and my kids know that number, and I make them sort of write it out, and then I make them talk about now, how do we spend this money, and how do we think about this money, and what's revenue, and those types of things. But I think everyone, you all have some ability to do that, but I do think it's just recognizing that you have to aggressively go against the stereotypes because they're out there and they're everywhere. You don't even know what they are. I didn't know that football story until 3 years later when my son, I finally figured out. No wonder my daughter hated it. It took 3 years for me to figure that out. So they're everywhere, and you've got to be really aggressive to sort of fight it on behalf of both your children, all your children, by the way, sons, daughters, it doesn't matter. It's all kind of, really teaching them that they can do anything if they decide to.
Thank you. So, all right, we're going to go to the New York Times next, since we did the NPR thing. We'll go to New York Times. So a recent op-ed in the New York Times cited a global survey of 6,000 MBAs worldwide. And this was also done by Catalyst. They do really good work. It indicated that 50% of women who did take jobs, these are women with MBAs, who did take jobs in technology companies, left. Half who took jobs in tech companies left, versus 31% of their male counterparts. And these women gave various reasons for leaving. But 75% of them said that it was because they felt like outsiders. So what is your personal experience? And anyone can answer this. What is your personal experience with this? Was there any point in your career where you were made to feel like an outsider, either as you were fundraising as a founder, either, and you were coding as a CTO, and Melissa, you going for new business, talking to prospects, did you at any point feel like an outsider?
Yeah, I definitely have experienced that. All of my clients, majority of my candidates are all male. And I feel like I'm always having to sort of prove myself from a knowledge standpoint. I think my clients are like, oh yeah, but then when they talk and they realize I really know what I'm talking about and I can really help them and they see me as somebody who can, is a consultant to them, then I get that buy-in and that respect. But I'm constantly I'm beating down those doors every day. But I think it goes back to not enough women. You know, we have to internally beat that biasism ourselves.
Yes.
And we have to be confident in our own selves to know that we can, you know, deal in, you know, a more dominant, predominant male society that we work in. So I think at the end of the day, it really starts internally and believing in yourself and then going from there.
I mean, I'll just say, and I say this all the time, I sit on a lot of these panels, and I spent the first 10 years of my career acting like a man. I did that to myself. The men didn't want me necessarily to act like a man, but you know, they liked football and they drank beer, so I liked football and I drank beer. I hate both of those things. But for the first 10 years of my career, I pretended like I liked them. And then I finally figured out, you know what, you can actually be yourself and not be an outsider, because it's okay that we're different, and you're supposed to sort of exploit those differences. But I completely agree with Melissa. You have to be confident enough. You have to be confident enough that you get up and leave the meeting because you're going to go home and take care of your kids. And I'm sorry if every other guy in the room has a wife who can do it. Good for you, but I don't, right? So, I mean, those are the kinds of things that it really, men are not trying to make us feel like outsiders. Not at all. Some are, I'm sure, but it is not purposeful. And most are really, they're just trying to do a good job, and they're just acting like guys. And so you just got to learn how to act like a girl with a bunch of guys acting like guys, and be confident in the fact that you can act like a girl. It's as simple as that, really, in many ways. But it takes a long time to figure that out.
So,
or at least it did for me.
So how'd you figure that out, Jen?
Well, so I have a little different view, because from probably late high school on up, I was the only woman in my classes, right? So I have a Bachelor of Science in Mathematics and Computer Science. So I graduated in a very small university, but in a class of people that got mathematics and computer science degrees. There were 2 women in the program and 140 men. So I was used to being the only woman in the room and okay with it, and I exploited the hell out of it, okay? I got promoted faster than anybody else, all along, right? Because I was a woman, I could code, and I could communicate better than most of the men, right? And they were watching football on Saturday, and I was like doing work or whatever, right? I got promoted from, you know, junior developer to senior developer to team leader to manager to eventually chief technology officer faster than anyone else in my class, so to speak, right? And it was because I was a woman and because I used it. I used it at sales presentations. So as a software development manager presenting to a company, a Fortune 500 company that might buy your software, and they want to talk to the person in charge of the software development team for the product roadmap, I would wear a red suit, short skirt, right? And I would sit on the table in the front of the rooms with my legs crossed. So I'm distracting them, potentially. If I can't answer the question, at least I can distract them, right? So, just being honest, right? Okay, so my theory was, if I'm the only one in the room, then there's a benefit here, and I need to leverage it. I need to play on it, and I need to be confident and strong and be that person that they want me to be, even if it's only in front of them for that 30 minutes, and then I go back to my cube and cry, right? I'm going to do that. So I have leveraged that my entire career. So I actually, so starting StartupChicks is really a stretch for a woman that thinks this way, quite frankly. Running a women's organization for a woman that's like always enjoyed being the only female in the room, really kind of difficult leap if you want to think about that, okay? Like, so now I run a women's organization. If you told me 20 years ago that I was going to run a women's organization, I would tell you that you were insane. But no, so I love men, and I used it to benefit me all the way along.
Tweet that. She loves men.
I do love men.
That's a fantastic soundbite. Thank you, Jen. All right, so it sounds to me like we need to leverage our strengths. That's what I'm hearing all of you say. We need to know our stuff. I promise the organizers that I won't drop any profanity in this particular panel. So, because we're being filmed, we need to know, as women, we need to know our stuff, and we need to know it cold. Some women would say we need to know it better than the average bear, but leverage our strength. as well, as women, our gender, is what I'm hearing. Yes? Okay, perfect. Well, okay, so let's talk about workplaces. I mean, you know, y'all probably have workplaces that are awesome, that have this culture of inclusiveness and such. So what about workplaces that don't? What can we do? Like Lynn, what do you do at Cardlytics? I mean, you're chief there, so what do you do to create that?
I mean, first of all, we have the same challenges everybody else does in terms of hiring and recruiting talent, and particularly women or any kind of diversity. We have the same challenges that everyone else does. But I really do believe, and you know, I'm going to sound like Sheryl Sandberg again, but I just so love her book. It's up to us to set the way. So I have a responsibility to every woman or member of my company to create an environment where we help each other, rather than stab each other in the eyes, and where we try to, you know, lift people up and help them move on in their career, whether it's in Cardlytics or outside of Cardlytics. That's my responsibility. And if we all sort of start taking it that way, I mean, it's not just technology. Like I said, there are very few women at the top. There are very few women CEOs. There are very few women in C-suites anywhere in any company of any size in this country. And so who do you look up to? And so the few that are there, it's our responsibility to help more people get there. But it's your responsibility not to quit, right? And when I say quit, I don't just mean actually quit your job. I mean quit in terms of saying, you know, it's enough, I've gotten to where I need to be, or I don't really want my boss's job. Like, if you have the ability and you have the talent, you gotta go for it. And all the women who were there above you and ahead of you have to help you get there. I really feel very strongly about that. And if you can create that culture in any company, then you've won half the battle, for sure.
Anything to add with either one?
I guess I was going to say, if you're in an environment that you're feeling stifled in, leave.
Yeah, I agree.
Okay, you're a woman in technology.
Yeah.
You can get a job
Come work for
anywhere.
us.
Okay, so just leave. If you're not getting the support that you need from your managers or the management above you or from your peers, just leave. There's plenty of opportunity for you out in the broader world. Find someplace that will truly help you grow.
Go to a StartupChicks meeting. All women in technology. Be a part of that. Melissa?
I think for me, I do a lot of startup work. So a lot of my companies are young. They're growing. They're predominantly all men. There are no women, but they all want women. So I'm constantly talking to them and encouraging them, you know, what if you did hire a female technologist? How would the group embrace her, and how would that happen? I think some of the things that companies can do is really get the females engaged in communities and, you know, StartupChicks and Ruby Girls and all the different programming groups out there, because I think women also like bonding and support systems, which could be lacking in a male-dominated group that you're working in. So you can go outside and get that fulfillment in other organizations in your community and still get that fulfillment, because I know it's easy to just leave, but there's so many great companies out there that are just all men, but you really want to be a part of that organization so you can get other fulfillment in the other.
So get your support
programs.
from externally, from some other external party. So I have a question though, that this begs the question. So ladies, think back to when you were in an organization with male bosses. What would you have liked them to do to create that culture of inclusiveness? Because you are all now the mistresses of your domain. So when you were coming up in your careers, what would you have liked the male executives, the bosses, to have done? Like one or two things. You don't even have to answer. You were fine.
Well, first of all, we all still have bosses. Right? Like, you have a boss, which is your clients. You have a boss, which is your StartupChicks. I have a boss, which is my board, who are all men. So we all still have bosses, so you never get away from that, ever, unfortunately. And what happens is you just have more of them. So I have a board, I've got 10 bosses. Instead of, earlier in my career, I had one boss, right? But I think it's just it's most men, I really believe, actually want to be supportive. it's up to you to tell them what you need. And so it's different for each person, right? For me, it was, you know what? I was going to leave at certain hours of the day to go make sure I did homeroom stuff with my daughter, or whatever it was. But you just have to tell them. And then I think if you do, once you figure out what it is you need from them, you tell them, and then I totally agree. If they don't deliver, then you leave. But most will, as long as you figure it out what it is you need. The problem is I see so many women who have this cliche of, well, I can have it all. You can't have it all. You can have what you want. You can have what's important to you. You cannot have it all. Anyone who tells you that is lying. You can just have what you chose is important to you. But you can't be a mom and a career executive and a homeroom mother, and you can't. So figure out what's important, tell your boss, and then hopefully they'll support you, and if they don't, leave. I think it's as simple as that.
And for me, that's exactly what I did in my company. I got to a point where I wanted to grow, and I was having talks with them, and I wanted more strategic, and it wasn't there for me. Mm-hmm. So I left and started my own. But I had to ask for that, and it was a male-dominated, it was all men, 4 owners, all guys, and there was just no room for me to get involved in the organization at a deeper level. But I did ask. And then once you ask and you don't get, you go.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So all my mentors until StartupChicks were men. Mm-hmm. So male bosses or whatnot that guided me on my career. So until I actually launched StartupChicks, I didn't even personally have any great female role models. Mm-hmm. And in launching StartupChicks, all of a sudden, I had women reaching out to me that like are just total rock stars. And saying, I love what you're doing, I want to help you, and they've become my mentors now. So my whole vision pivoted 6-ish years ago when I launched StartupChicks, and I now have really great female mentors and really great female support system, whereas before that, most of my support system had been male. I had my group of friends that were over here that were my friends, right? My girlfriends and all my friends that I'd had been friends with for 20 years, and then I had my work friends, right? And never the twain shall mix. Today there are no boundaries. Everything is one big puddle because I'm connected that way at this point in time.
Let's switch to, thank you for that. Let's switch to a slightly different, about female-led. Let's talk about startups for a second, because all 3 of you are sort of kind of, well, very much at the epicenter of startupdom, as I like to call it. So 3% of women, 3% of venture-backed startups are founded by women. So this is a rare species right here, sitting right here. She's very, very rare, and Jen even rarer. Well, arguably as rare, because there are even fewer startups founded by female technical founders. So you're seeing, take a picture. They're on the same panel. So with your vantage, and this is for Jen first, with your unique vantage point, what's your perspective of globally? This is a global problem. What's your perspective? Why are we not having more female-led startups venture-funded or angel-funded?
Well, so the stats go 3% are venture-backed. 6% are founders in any role, and even the bigger problem is 85% of all women-owned businesses make less than $1 million a year in revenue. And I actually think that last piece is actually the bigger key. It's about ownership instead of equity. Right, so when we start talking about women-owned businesses, we're talking about businesses that are 51% owned by women. Lynn?
No.
Guessing no,
No,
right?
not even close.
Right, so I've owned 1 women-owned business in the 7 startups that I've done, because everything else took outside money, which means that it's probably not going to be entirely female-driven. So there are really very few statistics outside the venture statistics that are just about female founders. And I think it's not about ownership. It's about equity. It's about voting rights. Okay? And it's about being a leader. And so if we really want to grow more businesses that are hugely successful by women, women have to, A, think bigger, solve bigger problems. Okay? Lynn's solving a huge problem, right? Okay, so solve bigger problems. B, we need to lead, not own. right? I like to say Michael Dell never owned, right? Bill Gates never owned. Steve Jobs never owned.
That's really interesting.
Right? So let's talk about leadership, and let's talk about founding companies and being that leader, being that visionary, having equity, maybe even having majority voting rights. I mean, that's how Mark Zuckerberg did it, right? He didn't own 51% of the company, but he owned 60% of the voting rights when the company went public. That's how he managed the company, right? So let's talk about what that really means, and let's measure things differently, right? Let's measure women leadership instead of women owned.
So Lynn, I'm going to throw this to you. You led the company to a global expansion because, after Bank of America, you had, it was,
Lloyd's.
yes.
Yep.
So take us through that. How did that happen, and what was that like?
Well, I think it goes back to you have to think bigger. And I mean this for any entrepreneur, whether they're a man or a woman, but I do think women tend to, men go, you hear this all the time. If you ask a man, can you do your boss's job? And you ask them to raise their hand, like 90% of the men in the room will say, of course I can. If you ask that same question to women, like 10% will raise their hand. So women just, by definition, they tend to sort of go, well, I can't do that, I'm not sure I can do that, therefore I won't. And men tend to go, of course I can do that, I'll figure it out as I go. So you do have to think bigger. And if you're not uncomfortable, I say this to the company all the time, if I'm selling stuff that's already built, we've failed. Because I need to be out there selling like, what's going on next, where we're going next, what we're thinking about next. And it's just writing code. Somebody can go type it later, right, once we sort of figure it out. And so it really is about thinking bigger than you're comfortable with. I remember the first time we went over to the UK, it was me and the CEO, and we founded the company together. And I was like, it might be too early to be here. He's like, no, absolutely not. And I'm like, you're probably right, fine. But I needed to push myself to be uncomfortable, and that's the only way I think that you do sort of think bigger than you're capable of.
That was a really fantastic answer. So think bigger is the answer, and dare to go. See, these are the traits. It's daring. It's the constant learning. It's the daring to go and push and go where you're not comfortable. Because we tend, and I'm gonna generalize like crazy based on your responses. We like to stay where we're comfortable, where we know we're in control. It goes back to control. Love it. And it's really about leadership, not ownership.
Yeah.
I love this. Okay. I'm enjoying this.
So, I
guys.
mean, like, point on that, like, StartupChicks went to Silicon Valley and San Francisco last week, and I really wasn't ready to do it. I mean, I was like, they don't need us there. We'll just focus on our little southeast corner. It'll be great. It'll be awesome. We have like 7 chapters. It'll be fine. And my former co-founder from my very first startup, eTour, is president and CEO of CBS Interactive, and he's like, so we're gonna have coffee on this morning, and then you're gonna have a StartupChicks event in our space that evening, and it's taken care of. I was like, what? And I'm like, no, we don't. You guys don't need us out there. You got Women 2.0. You got lots of stuff going on for women entrepreneurs in Silicon Valley and San Francisco. And he's like, no, you're gonna do it. And so last Monday night we had an event for 77 women in San Francisco, and we now have Silicon Valley and San Francisco StartupChicks chapters starting in January. And I really wasn't. No, so I was in that same place. I was not comfortable with it. A friend, mentor, former startup co-founder was just like, we'll just see what happens. Just do it. Just show up and talk. And that's basically what I did. I showed up and I talked, and we had 77 women, and now we have 2 chapters starting. So sometimes you just gotta do what you're not ready for.
So Melissa, what are you doing to go take your business global? Put you on the spot there for a second.
Well, I am a global recruiting firm. But I think for all of us, what we're hearing too is it's finding a mentor. It's finding somebody who sort of believes in you and pushes you, because I think none of us would be doing what we are doing now if we didn't have that. I was very fortunate. My main mentor was a male as well, but he was one that he would like to say he was raised by a single woman and raised with all just all women surrounding him. So he was a big fan, and he really helped mentor me. But I think all of us have gotten to where we are a little bit through people pushing us. We're always outside our comfort zone. And that's something
That's
that
part of being an entrepreneur, is being able to live outside your comfort zone.
being an entrepreneur and being in the tech space too. It's always, you're a little bit in an uncomfortable setting sometimes.
And y'all may or may not know this answer. What are the failure rates like between female-led and male-led startups? Do they compare?
I don't know that
Most
I've seen
fail.
any studies about that.
Yeah,
I don't know
I mean,
that I've
most
seen any
fail,
studies
period.
about that. I mean, the current studies that keep coming out is that women on your board and diversity on your board actually gives you like a significant bump in revenue and your likelihood to succeed. But I don't know that I've seen any about what the percentage fail.
Okay. All right.
Fail's sort of hard to determine in a lot of terms anyway.
Okay. So you keep talking about mentors. Y'all, mentors keep coming up. Conventional wisdom says, yes, let's go get mentors. So let's talk about how we go about getting mentors. There's no directory, last I heard. And
Well, so
would be nice.
here's an interesting stat. So I was actually at a mentoring conference in San Francisco last week.
there's a mentoring conference?
So it was a mentoring summit with UC Berkeley, Stanford, Georgia Tech, MIT, George Washington University, University of Michigan. So some thought leaders in technology space about technology startups. So there was a mentoring summit just talking best practices and seeing if we could maybe document what we do so that we could actually share with the world like what mentoring practices are there. But studies show that 80% of formal mentoring programs fail.
Yep.
We have nods in the audience. Okay.
So like you don't go join an organization, ask for a mentor, and think that it's going to work. What you have to do is you have to find the right mentor for you. And that means probably a lot of coffee dates to go out, or wine dates is which I prefer, but to go out and find a mentor that's gonna work for you. And it's knocking on doors, because it's a little bit like speed dating. I mean, can somebody really set you up, like in matchmaking, right? With a really good mentor.
So Lynn.
Yeah, I totally agree with that. There's a difference between a mentor and an advocate. And there will be plenty of times in your careers that you do not have a mentor. They come and go because it's like dating. It's even more serious than dating. And sometimes you don't date, and so sometimes you don't have a mentor. You always need to have an advocate. And an advocate is someone inside the organization who respects what you do, understands what you do, and will raise their hand and say, yes, she or he is great, they could do really well in this job. You do not cry to your advocate. You do not tell your advocate what you want to do next. You do not tell your advocate you're thinking about leaving the company. Your advocate is there to advocate for you inside the company and say, this person does great work. Your mentor, who you may have sometime in your career and you may not, depending on how dry spell you are, is someone you can do all of that with and then some. But really understand the difference between those two and make sure you always have an advocate. If you don't have one inside your company right now, you're probably not going to go very far.
So do you think male mentors or male advocates make you bolder and more willing to take risks? Oops. Is there a difference between male and female? Sorry. I didn't even drink.
I think that depends, right? So my female mentors at this point are quite possibly harder on me than my male mentors were in the past, but that's based on who they are. I mean, they're total rock stars, right? Raised $92 million in venture capital, one of them, and the other one's $74 million in venture capital. So they're serious rock stars, and they're tough, right? So I don't know that gender matters as much as just finding the right fit, the right person.
Gender hasn't played a big part in mine. I do agree that my women mentors are harder on me. My men mentors maybe become more advocates for me. But I think it's just an organic process that happens as you ebb and flow throughout your career, your life, your college, schooling. There's a teacher you naturally gravitate to. There's an older student that you've met. It's sort of but you've got to put yourself out there too. And it is doing the, meetings and stuff. But in my experience, it really hasn't been different. I get different things from both. The women are more harder on me, but the men push me to encourage me to do more.
Okay, so what's the best advice that you've ever gotten? Crickets. We have crickets. Anyone? Anyone? Bueller?
Go for it.
Yeah, just do it.
I mean, yeah, go for it.
Sort of my motto, but yeah.
Okay. That, really? That,
I mean, there's so much. It's always.
one that sticks out. She's already off the hook. She gave one.
Well, so I guess recently I went through some personal stuff and I was on the fence about something, and so somebody told me to actually quit. Just stop. Just like quit. It's okay. You can quit. It'll be fine. Nothing, won't be the end of anything. And that actually kind of kicked my butt in gear to actually step it up a notch. So I don't know. Sometimes I think when you get stuck in the situation that you're in, sometimes you have to have somebody give you a different perspective and say, hey, it's okay if you just walk away from this. And that actually kind of pissed me off and got me re-engaged.
Yeah. Well, it's
So
like,
I think,
I love hiring military folks. I'll hire them all day long, and it's because they can ask the basic question of, is anyone going to die? And if the answer is no, then it can't be that bad. And go from there. So maybe the best advice is, whatever problem you're dealing with, the first question you say is someone going to die? Chances are the answer is no, and so it'll probably be okay. And if the answer is yes, then you should probably do something. So.
Okay. I was going to end this with a very, very serious question, but I'm not, because this is fun. This is way too much fun. So I'm going to ask. So I'm actually going to ask the audience this question before we go into Q&A, and I'm going to give you all one last chance at the mic. Anyone, after hearing this panel, anyone going to contemplate a career in technology? Oh, come on.
Continue.
Own it. Oh, continue a technology career? Own it. All right, thank you. Okay, so this is the wrap-up question. This is the easy stuff. What's your main call to action for our audience today? And it could be any of the topics that we talked about today or a new topic. I don't care. Just the one thing that you want them to go think about doing when they leave.
Don't quit.
Don't quit?
Don't quit.
All right.
Mine is sort of fix those biases, like be confident in yourself and be confident in what you do, and know that you're just as good as the male counterpart at the table.
Okay.
Think bigger.
Wow.
Gotta think bigger.
Don't quit. Fix the biases. Think bigger. Always be learning. Don't be afraid. Those are the ones that I jotted down. And with that, I'm going to turn it to audience Q&A. So, and it's, I have wedges.
Hi, my name is Damaso. It's really, when I saw your title, it kind of get me back to the woman minority status, that it's highly been politicized here in the Western world. Where I came from, we don't hear that terms very often. I was raised by a single mother. She worked sometimes 7 days a week, and she even take as highest risk as going to the bank, borrowing $2,000 so that I can come here and get an education. $2,000 may not sound much here, but over there it's a lot.
Yep.
And when I was growing up, there were 6 of us, 2 boys, 4 girls. In the household, in the house tours, there were no different between what boys do and what women do. So what that really happened is that it makes us grow up with different perspectives on how we see ourselves. Do you think that feminism is one of the factors that kind of push women into this minority status?
Wow. Does feminism push women in this minority status? Wow.
I think it's a good question. I think there are definitely women who play a feminism card in a way that irritates people around them, and that can't help. I don't think it's the root cause of the issues that we've been talking about, but I certainly have seen where that can be part of the problem.
I agree.
You're dying to say something, Jen.
I'm a struggling feminist. I really struggle to call myself a feminist. Being of a certain age, it was a very angry term. And I don't think it's an angry term anymore. So I actually think I need to embrace I am a feminist. Or maybe I'm a humanist because I do help entrepreneurs of both sexes. I think I have to go back to a couple years ago, I went to an alumni event from my university here in Atlanta, and I met a woman that graduated in 1972, okay? And she, as a graduate, went on to be very successful in a career at AT&T, but when she graduated from college in 1972 with a Bachelor of Science in mathematics, her choices were to become a customer service rep, to become a teacher, to become a nurse. There was one other thing. Oh, a secretary. Those were the 4 career choices that she had available to her in 1972 as a college graduate with a Bachelor of Science from a university. Okay? And then she took the customer service job and turned it into a sales job at AT&T and grew her career all the way to vice president of sales in one of the divisions at AT&T. And so this is a woman that is actually responsible for what is possible for us today. She is one of those women that led that charge, in the late 60s, early 70s, that actually gave us the career opportunities that we have today. And so no, I don't think that feminists cause this problem. I think society, and at least the United States, caused this problem, and we're just catching up now.
Over there.
Hi. I came a little late, so I don't know if you guys touched this subject or not. But number one, I have 2 questions. Number one is, what do you guys think of sustainable technology? Is it a trend, or you think it's something that's going to go away anytime soon? Number 2, my question will be more about technical women. A lot of technical women have very good ideas. They want to go ahead into entrepreneurship and found a company. But what about the business aspect of it? What would be your recommendation for someone who has a technical background, has all the great idea, go to the best school, but don't know necessarily how to start?
I'm going to have the panel, for the sake of time, answer the first question. And to shortcut this, talk to Jen Bonnet over there in the skirt. Yeah, please. Sustainable tech. Is it here? Is it a fad? Is it here to stay? What is sustainable tech?
Yeah, that's my question.
What is sustainable tech?
Well, actually, that's the thing. I go to Georgia Tech, and that's something new that they started teaching us actually in class. So I thought, maybe you guys have more insight on it.
Look, I think technology is obviously here to stay, and I think there are fads like wearable technology. I don't know if that's a fad or not, but the underlying components of what that stuff is capable of doing will not go away. It may modify, so it may not be wearable, it may be something else, it may be pacemaker someday, I don't know what it is, but I think the core kind of elements of what technology is capable of, that doesn't go away. It's just finding that right application for that right product, and that's where technology often gets messed up. Just because you can do something doesn't mean there's a business application and way to make money doing it.
Or it's forever sustainable.
Yeah.
I wanted to ask a question related to education. I know you touched in the beginning. And I was actually looking at some data as we were talking, and women today are 57% of college entrants. 57, and they have been the majority, and this was shocking to me, since 1979. So 35 years. And for STEM degrees, they are about 25. And then we know that for some engineering, it will be 15 or so.
Yep.
So it seems that until that gap is closed, there's just a very small chance that women are going to really play the role they should in technology, right? Because it becomes a numbers game.
Yep.
So what do you think is it that fundamentally has to change in whether it's society or families or government planning or whatever it is to close that gap?
I think it goes back to families encouraging STEM type projects and really building it in the family and then building it in the schools, highlighting, women entrepreneurs, women technologists, women leaders, breaking down those stereotypes, those biasisms, and just building more programs that help encourage women to grow in technology or STEM, medical, all of it.
I just wanted to know if you guys had any programs or classes for teenagers who are highly interested in technology.
God, that's a great idea. Someone go do that.
That's a startup idea.
I spent my lunch today at Linear High School in Gwinnett County, Beaufort area. So we are, my job, Assistant Director of Education and Community Outreach at ATDC, we are experimenting with what we can do at the high school level to start engaging students in being interested in technology. I will say that class has 16 people and only 4 women. 4 young girls, but we are once a month we go there with mentors and speakers and things like that to get them engaged and to start them thinking about careers in science, technology related stuff.
Is it open to anybody?
This is specifically at Linear High School, but there are some other programs that we've run in the summer. We've run a summer camp at ATDC the last 2 years. It's a 2-week program. And anybody can sign up for that. So we should connect offline.
Sandy has.
And for women in technology, we also have Girls Get IT, as well as women WIT on college campuses. So definitely check out Women Technology.
There's summer programs at Emory that are not girl specific, but they're technology little workshops that are open. Actually, there are a few that are actually for girls, middle school and high school. So check that out. I think we had what? How are we doing on time?
It's 8:12. I see her there.
Thank you all for your insight this evening. I work for a tech company that recognizes the need for more women in technology, and we specifically want to create and promote an environment where women can thrive like each of you have. What, from your experience, can a tech company be doing to really do that, to accomplish that?
So I see a lot of startups, and so I go visit startups a lot. Some of the things that I see are just like no-brainers, like silly, stupid things that startups make mistakes at, like the bathrooms aren't clean and the refrigerator's got things growing in it and stuff like that. I can remember being a founder of a startup and being the only female. I would spend an hour a week cleaning the fridge, and I'm like, I'm the coder, so this is a really bad use of time. Maybe we should hire a cleaning service because I can't go home for lunch and go to the bathroom there every time I need to go to the bathroom because I won't use the bathroom at the place. So there's a lot of things just from a very early stage startup thing that you can fix that way. But then I think it's, I love ATV has supported StartupChicks in actually helping us launch a StartupChicks circle here. And so we're bringing women from the different startups that work at ATV together once a month just to share their stories and learn together in the morning. And I think things like that you could do internal to your own company, breakfast or a lunch or things like happy hour or whatever that could really kind of coalesce that group of women together to be able to share and grow.
Hi. Good evening. Thank you for your presentations. Decades ago, I went to an anti-apartheid forum where the men were talking about making the townships ungovernable, but the women were talking about educating the children and ensuring that they were safe and had health care. Mm-hmm. Do you think there are elements in technology and technology businesses where women can be sort of specifically or more oriented towards different kinds of technologies?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think that's really interesting, and I see that sometimes in the opposite way, which I think because women do tend to be more of a caregiver. I'm stereotyping, but not really. I think it can be harder for them to take risks, and so I think not every woman can be a coder, right? But I think every woman can use technology to make something better that she cares about. And that's really what it's all about. You don't have to necessarily write the code, but you do have to embrace the technology to try and make things better and pick something that you care about. Like my business, most of you would probably think my business is pretty boring. I'm okay with that. I mean, I like it, but you probably all think it's pretty boring. It's not going to change the world. It's not going to help kids. It's not going to teach high schoolers how to do technology. So, but those problems all need solving too. So, I think that's where women should absolutely embrace the fact that we are different than men, that we have different passions and we think differently and we tend to be more of the caregivers. So embrace that and use that in your technology career.
Hi, my name is Cecily McLeod, and I wanted to ask you, some of us might be thinking about maybe transferring into or going into a second career. And so what advice would you give to a woman that has a career where, she has skills that can transfer into a tech company and is interested in maybe getting into the tech field? What should she do? What should she look for in a company to have that second career in tech?
She can talk to Melissa.
Yeah, exactly.
I would actually say learn to code. So there's a number of code camps. General Assembly has one, Tech Talent South has one, Iron Yard. Some of them have part-time ones. So like I know Tech Talent South has a part-time evening program going on right now. It's not necessarily about learning to code. It's about learning the lingo and learning the process so that when you go into work at a technology business, you understand the life cycle, the process, the lingo, such that you can be more effective communicator from day one.
Absolutely.
So for the panel, think and share with us, if you don't mind, of the most disruptive thing you've done in your career, whether it failed or succeeded, and were there significant barriers that you overcame and how you overcame them?
I wrote a search engine in 1997, pre-Google. I own patents on it, right, today. Well, actually, technically, the patents transferred with the sale of the company, but my name is on them. I still do consulting work for Ask.com based on that. So that was pretty disruptive. At the time, there was kind of, Dogcrawler and a couple other. Dogpile. Right. Inktomi was the search engine behind Yahoo, so Yahoo didn't even have its own search engine, right? It actually leveraged somebody else's technology. And so that was pretty interesting. And yeah, it was an interesting time. That's the company that I raised $42 million in venture capital with, and it was a total crazy ride, and sold to Ask.com in 2001. And I would not do it again. Not at this age, at least.
For me, I think it's, I left a big company to go to a startup and help grow it. I was the #1 producer. I got to a point where I needed more, and they wouldn't allow that, so I left. And I left to I had the golden handcuffs. It was a pretty big deal. It kind of affected, after I left, 8 other people followed and left that company around the same time because they felt as though if they're not going to take care of her, well, what are they going to do for us? And then I left to start a business in an ultra-competitive, ultra-man-dominated world. And I've been doing pretty good.
I would argue what I'm doing at Cardlytics is pretty interesting, but forget about that. The whole reason I got the idea to start Cardlytics is because I was in banking, boring old banking, working for a company called Capital One. And I developed a product, me and actually the person who started Cardlytics with me, the CEO, developed a product that basically was going to entirely disrupt banking. And it pissed off so many people in the banking industry that we sort of had the choice of either get out or stop making this product. So we chose to get out. And the funny thing was, without going into details of the Cardlytics business model, we sell to banks. And so in the early days, the only reason we got meetings with banks is because they wanted to meet the 2 crazy people who took on the entire banking industry, developed a product that almost disrupted everything. And that is the beginning of Cardlytics. It's called decoupled debit. You can go look it up. Boring banking, but.
Do you think that nonprofit organizations have been instrumental in, I guess, facilitating some of this change to promote promote the idea of technology or entrepreneurship towards women, and not just groups like Women in Technology, but also even a lot of youth programs that have like coding programs for young girls, or even groups like Acumen Fund that go around the world to focus on business development, and with technology being, of course, a critical component of what some of these nonprofits are trying to facilitate.
So I think it's our global nonprofits like the Acumen Fund and their focus on female entrepreneurship, is that helping at all in the cause?
Yeah, so I'm a big supporter of Black founders and Black Girls Code and the Ruby on Rails group. And back in the day, ages ago, we had Web Girls and all these different organizations. And I do think they do make an impact. I do think they still struggle with funding. And so it's hard for any of these organizations to make a long-term impact with the funding challenges of a nonprofit, right? So you don't really hear that much about Web Girls anymore because they hit this point where they couldn't get funded anymore. But now you're hearing a lot. Mark Andreessen's foundation just wrote a check to 3 different organizations that are focused on helping minority and women develop coding skills. So I think it's very important, but hopefully we'll see a longevity there and some.
I guess this is to touch back on the feminist thing, because I do, as a woman, feel like I can kick any man's butt. So I just want to ask, like, with your experience in the industry, has that hindered you anyway, thinking that way?
So I'm a new feminist, so it's hard to say. I never really viewed myself as a feminist until probably 3 years ago, right? I ran an even women's organization as a feminist. It does get interesting. So like somebody did a rant on Twitter just a couple days ago about ATDC being a bunch of old white guys, and I sent him back a message and I said, okay, white Republicans. And I said, oh, by the way, I'm a female that runs startups in the technology space, and I voted Democratic in this election. So do you want to have a conversation about this? Right? And so he's like, oh, I guess I need to shut up now. So I think it's, just embrace who you are and be okay with it and have those conversations.
I don't think confidence can ever get in the way. I think you need to have as much confidence as possible. But just be careful to not stereotype the reverse way. I know you're not trying to do that, but I do think it's part of all of our jobs to treat each person who we encounter in our career as a person first, and then figure out kind of if there are some stereotypes one way or another that you have to deal with. I generally believe that most people, whether they're men or women or black or white or purple or orange, they don't try on purpose to make you feel like you're not as good as they are. So if you approach it from that and you have high confidence in yourself, I think you will find that it's not as bad as it looks like it is. The numbers make it look like it's horrible, and it is horrible in a lot of ways, but I don't think people are consciously trying to make that happen.
Katie, are you in here? Oh, there. No, not you. Katie Courtney?
Katie Rogers, that's my middle name. Katie Courtney. Go ahead. It works. So I guess it's to follow up with what was kind of just asked. So in working in a startup, being the first female hire and voicing opinions and being assertive and all of that, how would you, what advice would you give to young females who are just starting to find their voice and who may be a little shy, where leaders in tech may say, hey, speak up a little bit more, that's a great idea. What advice would you give, because you've all been in that place, and how did you get to that point?
This will be our last question before I bring up the folks from World Affairs Council, so don't go anywhere.
I feel like for me, getting involved in organizations, especially women ones, that encouraged me and grew my confidence. And so I would come back and bring that back into my environment.
Sit at the big boy table. I'm quoting Cheryl again. I think if you haven't read the book, she's brilliant. But sit at the big boy table. You're there. You've got a voice. Speak with the men. Don't be shy of your opinion. Sit at the table.
Anything different to add, Jen?
So I was really shy. I know it's hard to believe.
Really?
I'm an introvert.
Really?
Really hard to believe. But so when I was coming up in my career, and sometimes I was afraid to speak out on something. Sometimes what I did was I went and built a little prototype first, or mapped something out, or put together a little PowerPoint or something, so that I could actually bring something in that was prepared, and then I could talk to that with my boss or the team. So versus just trying to sit at the table and interject my thoughts, I could be like, hey, I've been thinking about this. Can I talk to you about this? And here's what I came up with as an idea to solve this problem that we were talking about yesterday, right? And that gave me a format to actually express my ideas, but not feel like I was interjecting, and it got me a way to be heard. And then over time, if an idea turned out to be a good thing, then the boss would bring it back to the table, or my mentor would bring it back to the table and say, and I'd actually present on it, kind of thing. So that was one of the things that I used to do. It doesn't have to be like a coding prototype. It could be literally, 4 PowerPoint slides on how this thing might work if we implemented this idea.
So that's a really good tip, not just for women. It's a really good tip for shy people, like me. I know, right? So, this are my notes. And having notes and when you write your notes, it helps you structure your thoughts. And when you structure your thoughts intentionally, it's going to come out a lot more effectively to the person that you're wanting to present the thoughts to. So, okay, so that at 8:27, I'm gonna bring up the folks from World Affairs Council. Let's give a round of applause to our panelists.
Hi, I'm Shelby Gilbert. I'm a boring lawyer. I am not a technologist, but I'm the vice chair of the World Affairs Council of Atlanta. And I just want to thank Christy for facilitating or Jackie for facilitating such a great conversation tonight. I learned a lot, and especially to our panelists for teaching us how women can really make a difference and use technology to make the world a better place. I just want to talk really quickly about the World Affairs Council. I know we have a lot of people who don't know much about our organization, but we're an organization that tries to help people broaden their horizons and think globally, think about issues around the world, and how they can use those, when they broaden their horizons, how they can start to think big, and how they can make connections that are helpful to them in their careers. I want to talk really quickly about some of the upcoming programs that we've got. I know that we've got a flyer in everyone's chair that talks about an upcoming social event. We do social events throughout the year that are aimed at just having a good time, where people can let their hair down and go enjoy a good meal with friends, usually at different restaurants around town. We're in a very diverse international city. We try to engage with other parts of the community so we can learn about other cultures around town. So the next one we've got, I think, is on December 11th. It's a restaurant. It's supposed to be a pretty cool spot with Caribbean and Nigerian fusion food. Haven't been there, but here it's supposed to be pretty cool. In the spring, we're kind of wrapping down for the holidays in December with our programming year, but in January, we're going to have some events that are really focused on the Atlanta export plan and things that the Metro Atlanta Chamber are coming out with, and we're going to start reacting to that. Folks that are in the Young Leaders organization, what do we think about the export plan? What do we think about people that are making plans for the city? What does this crowd want to see? How do we think big or go big with our businesses or brand ourselves differently if we want to engage with the rest of the world and take our startups to export to the rest of the world and really grow? So that's one thing we're focused on. We've got a conference coming up on February 28th. If you sign up to join the World Affairs Council, I think that you get a discounted entry ticket, or maybe free if you join tonight. Don't quote me on that. Our conference chair's here, kind of nodding her head, I think. But we'd love for you to join. The focus of that is going to be, how can people who are interested in international issues really think about changing their city, or make it, how is Atlanta, is Atlanta an international city? Should Atlanta be an international city? How can we take advantage of the immigrant populations in Atlanta to really grow as a city? I think it's going to be a great conference this year. Tired of hearing when I leave town about snowpocalypse and all the problems with the city. Well, let's make it better. So that's what we're going to be talking about. And then we have events throughout the year just about hot topics in international affairs. We had a great briefing about what's going on in the Ukraine and Russia. For those of you interested in guns and bombs, that was what I studied in my career, or before I became a lawyer. We have events throughout the year on any type of global issue, and if you get involved, you can tell us what kind of events you'd like to have. But again, thanks to our sponsors, and I'll just pass it to our chair, Cecily, really quick.
Thank you, Shelby. Thank you, Shelby. I'm Cecily McLeod, and I just want to thank you all, to our non-members and our members, for coming and joining us tonight. And I want to also say thank you again to our panelists. We would like to, on behalf of the World Affairs Council, we would like to offer you a membership to the council. So Jen, this is for you. You have some swag and information and a membership card. Melissa, you're welcome. Lynn, you're welcome. And to our great moderator, Jackie, thank you so much. And lastly, to Aaron. Is Aaron, this is for you. We first met about this event months ago and started planning it. We met first, and then met Sebastian, and Aaron and I met months ago to kind of bring this event together. And I just want to say thank you to Aaron for being so responsive, for being such a great partner. And it's been such a great experience working with you, and we really appreciate your collaboration. So we have a free membership for you too. So everybody, yay! So, and I just want to also thank, lastly, the leadership development team who really did a great job of putting this together, Sebastian and Mark. And can all of the exec members just raise your hand really quickly, if those of you who are still here. If you have questions about the council, please talk to one of us. Thank you again. Thank you to everyone. Thank you. Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
Yes.